When the swallows fly back. 54 years with you, and all I'm left with, other than the ashes I spread on this beach, are questions. I watch the surf on the beach pull more than give back to the shore, and the pull it makes attracts something inside me, and I find myself standing at the edge of it. The foam of the ocean licks at my feet, the cold brush of the endless horizon I face. For a moment, I wished I'd swept with the sands when the sea dragged them deep. Perhaps somewhere in the depths of the sea my answers lay hidden. I envied the remnants of sandcastles melting in the shore. As I opened my palm, I let the remaining parts of you merge with the sleeping Pacific coast, blowing away as I continued to pour grains of you back to this earth. I found some of you clinging onto my hand, and there I knew there will always be dusts of you stuck in the lines of my skin. There, in the wind, all gone. And just like that, as if nothing happened, the Pacific coast continued sleeping. Some white birds hovered above. The sun is mandarin, and the salt water tickled the shore like how it does each day of its life. Yet I stand here waiting, hoping that spreading you was nothing more than a bad dream. The wooden staircase back to our usual camping spot towered above me. I couldn't find the energy to climb back up, nor could I find the strength to stay on this beach. Only now I realize that Carlsbad has etched the image of our summer, and it has deeply carved itself with you in the picture. Spreading you on this beach took everything in me, and now I have nothing to go back with. I found a turtle-like stone by the foot of the wooden staircase, the stone where you always placed your foot before helping me take the step up. Has it always been there? There's a funny sound the wooden stairs make when a lilt of wind passes. I don't know if you heard it, but it sounds like an angry rabbit. It's silly, but I wish you could have heard this before. And damn it, who cares? I pressed the back of my shorts as I stood up, tapping away the sand, the dirt, and the irritation to the idea that my husband for 54 years is now with his maker. And now all I am left with is this numbing throb in my head. With the notion of time on my wrinkly hands, I soon saw that I have, in fact, reached the top of the staircase. It's a win for both our ends, right? Idling wasn't really in our bodies, right? And it is in your best interest that I must, with all my energy, after I spread your ashes in Carlsbad, find a path where I can move on. Right? You're a prick, Frankie, such a prick, I said, letting the warm sun bathe me in beads of muddy sweat. Shh, said the man behind me. I looked at him with brows furrowed. You see that? They're napping. Sterna antillarum, he continued. My brows raised. They're an endangered species, but lucky us, San Diego County is providing them protected breeding grounds, he finished. He had a hat like yours when you fish, a vest like those who went on safari adventure trips, and thick black frames. I looked towards the bird. All I saw was a white bird with a yellow beak nesting on the beach. It was like any other white bird with a yellow beak. Through his binoculars, I guess they were more than that. As I drove back home that same night, I asked the slowest Toyota Prius crawling in front of me, how do you move on? Like how? And what was that Sterna thing again? It remained as it did, almost motionless, timeless, crawling in the freeway. I decided to pass the poor old Prius. Get a Tacoma, I thought, like my dependable baby. With tenderness, I rested my back on the front door after locking it. There I watched the space existing in our house. Our house. Home. Ours. The hideous ottoman you kept. The rib sauce you liked. The atrocious coat rack you insisted we keep, since they don't make it like they used to with the lion paws it kept his legs. Your shoes I tripped on. A snare by the door. The shoes you left there I kept. There was the space you occupied and left for me to keep. Son of a fish? Our house is full of fish, I said. Our living room, dusty and different. How long since I've cleaned this room, I thought. I looked around. Pictures of us fishing at Big Sur with Danny. He was 8 then, and he didn't carry the beer belly you gave him. Fish on the throw blankets, fish in the snow globe, fish as kitchen magnets, fish on the walls, the tiles, floors, and corners. Fish inside my freezer. Fish in my dreams swimming around me. I held on to the fish swimming around me, to keep on swimming until my dreams pour over the dam of waking. What will I do with all this halibut? I said to the freezer. Tapped it as a headache started to form. I sat and looked up, measuring the leak at the ceiling, and wondered why we never got around to it. What will I do with this house? What do you expect me to do in this house? Huh? What? I continued. The kitchen answered me with silence as the sound of my own breath settled under the unwashed rugs by the basement door. For a moment, I thought I heard you ask, "What's for dinner?" But then realized it was my own tummy grumbling, reminding me that it was past 7 and I should get moving. Tomorrow will settle itself like how water finds its way through the pipes, through the floor, through the ceiling, through the wallpaper, until it becomes an unstoppable force, leaving nothing in its wake. The bed felt colder than usual. I had learned that space actually had a sound and prickling on the skin. I stare at the small vial of your remaining ashes resting on the bedside. Now I see that an ounce of dust is the heaviest I could bear to carry. When the next day came, it was generous. Anything after yesterday was generous. Birds, I thought. I heard birds from the pine tree out the window, and thought that birds were never there, or if they were, someone like you shooed them away. Towards the window I ran, walked, strayed. There was a thrill inside. I examined the outside where the sound came from, but on the window-sill I saw dust and dirt. All I saw was the neglect I have left this house in. Is today the day? I whispered. The day to meet more pieces of you? There were already piles of you in the closet, down the garage, up in the attic, back in the shed. And fixing up, I hid myself in the afternoons, days, weeks, and sleepless nights. It came as a surprise that it was already the end of May and the heat had arrived. I cleaned up your mess, Frankie, I said. And now, after 2 months, I found more space, as if nothing has changed. I walked careless on the front porch, careless in the foyer, careless in the living room past your ottoman, careless there. Went through the garage, careless, through the kitchen and the back, careless, up the stairs, turning left, to our room, to the window, inviting the punching heat in, careless. Everything that had you in here were boxed, filed, and kept somewhere for no one to stumble upon. But where do I fit in all of this, I thought? Where will I walk on this floor? What will my foot hit without your shoe by the door? What would I cook without your slump and groan of hunger? With these questions I ran to the attic where I knew I shouldn't have left you and tore the summer box open, spreading you all over the living room, small figures and shapes of you. I carry these thoughts as I found my arms driving back to where I last left you, most of you. Mandarin filled the horizon and above. That was a thin stroke of red, then purple, then blue, then it gets darker and darker, like a ladder of colors climbing up. I wonder if we have seen the sun set like this, but then I let the thought pass like the breeze that went through me. It's rarely like this, said a voice. I turned from where I sat and saw it was him. Fishing hat, safari vest, belly out, thick black frames, and binoculars. Most people look at the sun, well, of course, who wouldn't, with it being so bright and beautiful, and so they fail to see the strokes it leaves on the sky, the thin red strokes like ladders, he said. Exactly, like red ladders. It's a rare occasion in this beach to see red stripes curving beyond the sunset. It has something to do with the particles in the sky. The way the light of the sun hits the dust particles in the atmosphere makes it blue. It's the reverse when it turns red. It's my husband. He glanced over with a look of both curiosity and surprise. You said something before about those birds, I added. Right, the sterna. I'm glad there's a sanctuary for them on this coast. They're a protected species, you know. Oh, and the funny thing about them is that they nest on the beach, so it's like they're having a family trip. Isn't that funny? That's amazing, I said, nodding after and nothing more. It was hard for me to respond anything further when the reddening sky before me was distracting. I thought of you when I saw the red line. It was like a pattern of you spread there. Well, that's what you get for having time on your hands, he added. His voice sounded like my sigh. It sounded like a search for something through a wide wall. Gawks of the white birds filled the quiet that roamed between us. Perhaps the mere mention of time made it exist even more. Frankie always said there was a way our breaths give life to word. Why are they protected, the white birds? What's happening to them? Mainly habitat loss, which leads to fewer reproduction opportunities and much less birth rate during spring, he said. Are you a bird scientist? A blast of laughter came out and his eyes vanished in the big smile that lifted his face. I'm just a local bird watcher. I told you, lots of time on my hands. You should try it, he asked. Bird watching, I said in quick response. Time on your hands. Try using it. But yeah, sure. You should try bird watching. Leftover red lines scattered through the sky and more blue covered half our faces. He extended his binoculars straight to my face. Here, have a go, he continued. Through the round scopes I glided across the sand, lights splashing on the beach, and then I found the bird, the sterna something, sitting on its chick. The chick looked up, pecking at the beak of its mother, both of them on the sand, lounging in a round nest of sand. You are now officially a bird watcher. Thank you. With laughter, I handed back the black binoculars. We should try around next month till July. Odd species find their way in this beach. I don't know why. Oh, even swallows. Can you believe that? We can also... I stood up from the beach and let his sentence fade as the second we. Thank you. That was groovy, I said. The blue cast of the fading sun flashed at the rear-view mirror of my Tacoma. Groovy? Who says groovy? I thought. The next Sunday I drove back to the same parking spot at Carlsbad. There was more sun this time around, and as the heat persisted on my neck, I found no sign of Mr. Bird Expert with his funny fishing hat and his silly black binoculars. At the very least, I thought, a slight apology was needed for the atrocity of Groovy. A few bikers and runners passed the slow afternoon, and still no signs of the expert. Red stripes did not line the setting of the sun this time. There was nothing rare today. The stripe is a nice gradient stripe, Frankie. You'll like it. You would say Monet, and I would say Manet. Either way, the careful brush stroke is what mattered in this rare sky. But not today. Today was only a reprint of a regular Sunday. And as my eyes ventured out onto the beach, only a select sternness lounged about. They too basked in the unrarity of the sunset. I hunched on the fading leather of my wheel with a sense of irritation or festering, whatever. What is the word, Frankie? When you're able to do whatever you want? As I head out, from the passenger side entering the parking on a bike is Mr. Bird Expert. If I was to apologize for the improper behavior I conducted myself in last time, this would be the right moment. But I drove past him and out the parking lot. I shouldn't make a big deal of things, that's what Frankie said. The Prius behind me slams his horn while I turn around. I pull a huge turn on the side of the road and parked in front of his mountain bike. "Hey," he said, his eyes missing with a slight smile. "I was driving past and I thought I saw you." "Cool," he said, and somehow my Groovy felt in place. "I was wondering where the birds were." "Oh, no birds today. It's going to rain." Weather is beyond me. Weather forecasts are Frankie's thing. "But hey, look, this morning I took a photo of this little thing," he added. From his fanny pack he took out a digital camera and pressed the red round thing on. We had to wait for it to make the sound it makes. There from the screen he shared it. It was on the side of the beach, high up on the side of the drop. "A swallow," he continued. "White-breasted, a nice round head with the hue of blue and gray spreading down, covering its feathers. A toy, I thought. It had distinct, sharp-pointed feathers and a tail, and it clung to the cliffside as if it were flat and comfortable. You would usually see the brown ones. This is the first time I'm seeing the blue and gray ones. Swallows always return to this spot around July, so they're about a month early, or maybe I am early. It's really a rare occasion," he said. It's as if everything was a rare occasion. In the accuracy of his forecast, I did not notice that the sky had grayed like the rare bird that visited, and soon after a small raindrop pecked my cheek. Frankie would have known this, and the following words would stream out. "I told you, Emerald, I told you it was going to rain." It would have been a warm voice nonetheless, warmth in the constant breeze of the Pacific coast. "Last night I read swallows don't usually return to the same spot," I said. "Really? Then this is really a rare occasion. We have a different visitor every time. Or maybe it's the chick of last year," he said, losing his eyes in the wide hope that covered his face. A face I admired and haven't seen for a while. The rain fell, one drop after the other. The white birds found some underbrush, and even the swallows had their small caves. The sun was gone, and all that was left were the voiceless words I held. From his bike he pulled out an orange umbrella, popped it open, and covered the sky with it. "I thought you might come today, so I brought this," he said. "I was, and have been every Sunday since. Even before I spread you across the reddening mandarin sky. It is your dust that mingled in the particles of the atmosphere that reddened the lame sunset," I thought. "You persisted, and so did I." The thing I like about swallows is that they live in corners on cliffsides and already built spaces, but only for a brief moment, 'cause they leave right after. "I guess it's funny that they never return to the same spot, unlike you and I," he said. We stood like that for a brief moment, allowing the raindrops to drumbeat the orange cloth of the umbrella. The sound continued in the silence that settled between Mr. Bird Expert and I. "Listen, I would like to learn more about the atmosphere, the birds, the sterna whatchamacallits, why they're even called that. Maybe next time. Teach me, I said. His gaze vanishing with his smile, he answered, Sure. I just brought this thinking you might be here, and look, here you are. Maybe next Sunday again, he said. The question held me still for a moment, like your arms, Frankie, whenever it got cold. I would have answered quickly, but then allowed the breeze to take whatever mistake I might have said. When the swallows fly back, I said. I watched the red striped sunset settle in the maps of my mind as I drove home that night, and found that our home waited for our memories to nest, like how swallows might do.